The TrekWorks YouTube channel is sponsored by Tenacontrols, makers of lighting kits, soundboards, and more. Tenacontrols brings your models to life. Welcome everybody to part 2 of our 1000 scale battle in the Mutara Nebula diorama that we're building up. In this video today we're working on continuing to install our lighting for our navigation and strobe lights on our models here. Right now I'm working with the 1000 scale Enterprise Refit kit by Polar Lights, and we left you off with the last video where we started doing some of this lighting installation. We had to get some SMDs into the shop here, and we finally got those in. So we've got some red and green SMDs, these 0805s, the really small miniature ones with the pre-wired resistor included. And we're going to be installing these into the saucer section on the model today. We thought we'd show you that entire process here. You can see off to my right here I've got my control board from Ralph at Tenacontrols. This is the board that actually controls the lighting for our separate. We have two different effects here. We've got a basic on and off flashing for our navigation lights, and then we've got a bright flashing sequence that flashes a little bit more rapid for our white strobe lights that need to go on. You can see here in the center on the bridge area of the upper part of the saucer here, I've mounted a single 3mm white standard LED. Now what that's going to be doing is that's going to be lighting up our bridge here. We're going to light the bridge part of the model. Unfortunately, it's so tiny. I was trying to figure out a way where I could maybe do the floodlighting effect, but it's just so tiny that it's not going to be able to happen because I can't get enough height here to aim the the lighting downward and cast it on here. I don't want to make the bridge too tall on this. It just wouldn't look right. And in fact, the bridge that comes with this kit doesn't have any slots in it at all for doing any kind of lighting, so I'm going to have to take a miniature file and file some slots, the one on each side and the one in the front, so we can have some the sort of window lighting coming out of it. But when we do that actual modification, we'll show you that. That'll be maybe in the next video. And you can see we've got these two little slots here on the top where the kit part snaps into place, and this is a snap together kit. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take a little bit of putty and we're going to fill these in. I'm going to put a couple of small pieces of styrene in here on the back side to fill it in so my putty has something to sit on. And I'm going to fill those in with putty because we're not going to snap that bridge on there. We're going to glue it on. And the reason I'm going to do that is that we're going to set the bridge down on here, and we don't want a light leak coming out around the area here where our LED is going to be lighting up the window ports. So this kit has a decal that goes on top here to give you that blue, and there's sort of a blue, duck egg blue color that goes on here, and then there's some detail. And so we if we were to put the bridge down on there and just snap that over the top of that, there'll be a huge light leak coming out around the edges of that, and then trying to go on there and fill that in and paint it and everything will wind up screwing up our decal. So what the plan is going to be is we're going to get our bridge modified, get the window slots cut open, get this all sanded nice and flat, and then we're going to actually glue the bridge down on top of this using some actual putty. And I like to use this perfect plastic putty here. This is in white, and light won't leak through that. It's it's really dense. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to just put a little bead of perfect plastic putty on the bottom side of the bridge and stick it down on top of there, and then take a Q-tip with some water and just go around the edges of it and wipe off the excess. And that's going to make a seal that you won't be able to see. It'll be white, so it'll sit on here nice and flush, but it'll fill in that tiny little gap that we would normally have there where you'd see the light leak coming out of that. And we won't have to worry about painting it or going in there and fiddling around with it at all. It'll be completely sealed, and we'll have it sitting on top of the decal, and it'll all be good. So that's the plan I came up with for taking care of that problem. But today what we're going to focus on, we're going to focus on getting these SMDs mounted and installed, and we're going to install our control board here, and we're going to get this all wired up, and we're going to test this out. So starting off here, I've got just one single one up here in the front for the navigation light that flashes in the front here, the white one. We showed you that on the last video. So now we've got to get these other SMDs installed, and we've got our red and our green that go on the each side of the saucer in the front. So we're going to get one of these out, one of each color. We got to do that on the top and the bottom of the saucer. So we're going to get those all worked in here for you. These SMDs are really easy to work with. You can see they come in this little bundle here. So we're going to separate them off the little kind of tape that they're held on with here and get one of them out. And these are the reds. So we want to make sure that on our ship here we have the starboard and the port side. The port side is, the one that'll have the red, the starboard the green. So what we want to make sure is that when we do this, we have that correct, because when when you're working on it, when you flip it upside down, you can get confused and go, okay, this is the starboard side and this is the port side. Well, when you flip it back up to the way it's supposed to be, you can have that, you can wind up having it backwards, and we got to remember the same thing on our lower saucer here. So as we flip this over, the port side here turns to starboard, as you can see. So we're going to be using a red SMD here for the port side. And you can see I've got my little hole drilled there, and I'm going to do this just like I did before. We're going to place this real carefully over the hole and make sure it's facing with the SMD pointed upward, into the hole. And I'm just going to drop a little bit of my CA glue onto this. I'm getting low on CA. I'm going to have to make a run to the hobby store. But we'll get a little bit of CA dabbed onto this. And then we're going to hit that real quick with our kicker that we use here in the aerosol can, which it doesn't hurt these at all. It works really good for this. You could also do this with hot glue if you wanted to, or even regular model glue if you wanted to, but I like to use this because it immediately cures and locks these into place so they don't get a chance to move or anything. I'm going to extend away from the actual SMD itself just an inch or so here and put another dab of glue on the wires and just hit those so that this whole thing is kind of locked down now and it won't get disturbed. And it takes just a second or two for that to grab, and you can see it's already taken a hold. So we've got that part. Now I'll continue doing this all the way through here. So we've got that one over here now on the port side, which is actually the left side of the ship for those who aren't into ship terminology. But we'll take a little bit of our compressed air and blow off this extra zip kicker here. Okay, so we've got that one, and now we've got to get one of our greens, and we've got to do the same thing on the other side here. And I want to make sure that I don't mix these up, so I'm going to make sure I set these off to the side, because there's no indication on these things themselves what color they are. You don't know until you light them. So we'll keep these separate. And we'll just get one of these out. The wiring that comes on these is nice and tiny as well, so we'll be able to easily fit all this inside the model here, which is nice. Just getting this worked around here. You can see our little spot right there. Just making sure I have it facing downward. That's important. Okay, let's repeat this process again. Doesn't take a whole lot, guys. You don't need to put a big blob on there, just a tiny little drop. And let it start setting right away. There we go. And we'll come away about another inch again here and get this one locked down. there we go, guys. You can see this stuff when it takes it. It sort of almost fizzles. You can almost see it kind of bubbling and fizzling, and as soon as it stops fizzling, it's already cured. So there we go. We have our left and our right navigation lights now, and we have our forward one. Now what we've got to do here on the top, you can see we've got two more in white that need to go back here at the rear. So I've got to grab those out of the my lighting stash box here, and I'll come right back and we'll get those installed. Take a quick break here, be right back. Okay, so we've grabbed our white SMDs that we needed out of the toolbox there, and we've got these ready to go. So let's go ahead and get these installed here now at the back, and we'll have the lighting done pretty much on the upper part of the saucer here already, so that's working out pretty good. Just want to make sure these are going to sit down in here nice and flat. Okay, just kind of repeat the same process over and over. We're not going to take you through this part on the Reliant because it's going to be the exact same procedure, so I'm sure you guys can figure that out. Those of you who are following along that might be new to all this. Some of this is old hat for you guys, but you know, we like to do these videos for both experienced and beginners here, and we promised you we'd show you every little step on this, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. So we've got this last one that we're going to place now. I will mention that these SMDs are available in, you know, by themselves. They're a little bit less expensive. They don't come, you can buy them, you know, not pre-wired. But I highly recommend, if you're not experienced with soldering and things like that, that you buy the pre-wired ones. They do cost just a tiny little bit more, but it's very, very much worth it. I wouldn't even attempt, I've been soldering for years, and I wouldn't even attempt to try to solder wires onto these things. It's just too small for my old eyes. So anyway, that option is available to you. The other benefit here of buying the pre-wired ones is they do come with a resistor already installed, which is nice because the resistor that's included is designed to work and keep the SMDs lighting in anywhere between 9 and 12 volts DC, and they'll be just fine. So that's another thing you can consider. Okay, so we've got all of our lighting installed here now, and you can see we've got kind of a little bit of a wiring mess, so we're going to have to start cleaning this up a little bit. We want to try to figure out where everything's going to go. Now what I've got to do is I've got to separate these two groups here. So we're going to do all the positive wires first, which that's the wire that has the resistor on it. And we've got our separate group like we talked about. We've got our strobe lights, which we've got a small one that goes on top of the bridge, which I forgot to mention that one. These here are all going to be, I got to backtrack here a little bit. Okay, so these are all going to be flashing at the same rate. On the Enterprise Refit, if you look here on the top, all these lights blink at the same time. These two here in the back, I think they do. I've got, you know, I'm going to have to go check that. I think that's correct. They all blink at the same rate. And so then we have a separate one here on the top of the bridge itself, which we're going to be doing with an SMD that flashes at a, you know, much faster rate, a strobing type flash. So we can go ahead and tie all these lights together on the same circuit. I was thinking of something else there, but okay, so let's get these all grouped together here and get all of our positive wires all together. We're just going to twist these wire ends together here and get them ready to be soldered. Unfortunately, because the resistor's on there, we can't trim these wires any shorter, but our our ground side, our negative side here, we're going to get those all grouped together, and we can trim those down shorter. They don't need to be that long because our board's going to mount right here inside the saucer. That's the beauty of this Tenacontrols board that we showed you. It's really tiny, so it'll fit inside the saucer, and that makes that really handy. Okay. Okay, so we've got all of our positives together now. We're going to grab all of our negatives. What I will do here as a test is let's see, make sure we didn't miss any of them. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we should have 5 wires of each, and that's what we've got here. Okay, so we've got these here. Now, these little wires are a little bit difficult to strip because they're so, small and fragile. So rather than trying to just, take my fingers and pull the insulation off there, what I like to do is take a lighter here and just heat those up, heat up that insulation, and then you'll find that covering, pretty much comes right off of there. You just kind of peel it right off. Got one down there that escaped the furnace. We'll get that one. All right, now I'm going to twist all these together. Go ahead and get my solder iron going here and get that warming up. Okay, that looks pretty good. Just give it a minute for our solder iron to get going here. So as you can see, this is pretty simple, guys. Not really difficult. As I said when we talked about this in the beginning, the SMDs are going to give us a really nice lighting effect on this, and they're nice and small. They'll look really nice and in scale on this. They won't look too bright. It should look really good. Okay, my iron's telling me it's ready to go here, so let's get this soldered. Getting them nice and hot so this stuff soaks in good. Still a little bit of insulation on those wires there. Okay, that one's good. And we'll get this group over here. Okay, so now what we can do is I've got my power supply here, which is 9 volts. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit to be on the safe side. I'm going to put this at about 8, and we're going to connect our power onto this, and we can test this to make sure all of our lighting is going to work. And as you can see, we have saucer lighting. Let me turn these overhead lights off here for you, and you can see we've got our green, our red, and our 2 whites, and our white one at the front. Maybe it shows up a little bit better here on the back side. So now when we can hook up our control board, we'll have, all this stuff flashing. So also, as you can see, these SMDs are nice and flat and small. So once we get this all hooked up, turn my power or my solder iron back off. Once we get this all hooked up, we can come back in here, and I just like to use some regular Testors black enamel paint, and the small stuff in the little bottle, and I'll just take my paintbrush and I'll just paint over the top of these with some black. It might take 1 or 2 tries, and then that'll completely light block that, and there won't be any light leakage in here. That's really easy to take care of. We'll do the same thing on the back side of this LED here. We'll just paint that black, and that will keep all of our light from leaking around where we don't want it to, and that'll take care of all that from the inside of the model. And then we'll be looking good up on the top here. Now, when I get ready to paint this, a lot of you have asked about how we protect these lights here from getting overspray on them when we paint them. Well, I'll just take a little tiny drop of Elmer's glue and drip it into each one of these holes before I start putting down my primer, and then I'll do all my paint work on this. And when I'm done, I'll just be able to reach in there with a little pin or something and just pull that right out of there, and it'll be, it's like masking it basically. The reason I like to use Elmer's is because it will dry and become sort of hard, almost like silicone, and it'll all come out of there in one piece. It won't it won't come out in little chunks or whatever. It'll all kind of stick together, and it works really good. I find it it works better for me than the actual liquid mask that's out there. Liquid mask, whenever I use that stuff, it doesn't come out in one nice piece. I have to pick at it, and there's little pieces that are wind up getting left over, and it gets really frustrating. So I don't bother using that stuff anymore. The Elmer's is much cheaper, and it works exactly the same, and it won't attack anything. It's completely inert, since it's sort of water based. It won't attack any of the paint or anything like that and cause any problems. So just a real cheap alternative to some of the more expensive things that other modelers are using out there. But there you go, guys. So there's the top of the saucer, and so you can use this same process that we did here throughout the entire thing. So what I'm going to do is, off camera, I'm going to go ahead and finish up doing the same exact thing on this saucer here. We've got to put a red and a green and a white, and then we'll have this upper section ready to go here, where we can we'll come back with you here, and we'll be installing the control board and wiring that up and getting everything tested and making sure it's working. So I'll be right back, everyone. Okay, so I've completed installing my SMDs in the bottom of the saucer. I put my red and my green and my white there at the front, and I made sure to pay attention to the port in the starboard side again. And so we've got this all set up now. So what I've done is I brought in my Tenacontrols control board, and we've connected that to everything. I'll explain how that goes real quick here. You can see we've got our instruction sheet from Tenacontrols, and what you have here is you have both a schematic here on the left, and on the right here we have also a written step-by-step guide on how to connect everything component to component, so it's really easy to understand. Here we see that we have 4 wires that come into our board. We have a harness that's already installed on the board here. We have a red and a black and a green and a yellow. The red and the black are for the power that comes in. You can connect that directly to anything between 9 and 12 volts DC for your power source. And then we've got a yellow wire and a green wire, which are for our separate navigation and strobe light circuits. So what we do here is, for our strobe side, we have a yellow wire, and since we've only got one strobe on the saucer here, what I've done is, while I was off camera there, I drilled a little hole right through our BC deck here, and I've got one white SMD that I ran up through there, which connects to our yellow wire. That's for our strobe circuit that we'll have on top of our bridge. So I've just got a little slack that I left in that, so we can glue that to the bridge when we get ready to put that down on there. And so that one flashes completely different than the rest of these lights do. But then on our navigation side, we have the green wire, as you can see here, which connects to all of the negative side of all these SMDs. And so we have 8 of them in total. We have 5 on the top and 3 on the bottom of our saucer. So all 8 of the negative side of those are connected to the green wire here. And actually the negative side of the strobe light on the top is connected to the yellow, so we've got those 2 separated out. Now on the positive side, they all connect to the same wire, and you can see what they've got here is they've got a jumper wire that you run. So on the red wire coming in for our power, we just run a little jumper wire over, and then we connect that to all of the positives. So every positive one that you're going to connect on here, every LED that you use, or SMD, whatever you're going to use, all connects to that same one. So it's really straightforward and really easy to understand, like we said. And so now I can turn this on for you guys. and you can see that we've got everything flashing here on our navigation lights. I'll just kind of put the saucers together here, and the nice thing about these SMDs is that they're so tiny and flat that we don't have any issues with the you know, where it won't close or anything. They all fit together with plenty of room to spare in there. And so now you can see the lighting effect. I'll go ahead and turn this overhead light off again so you can see it. Now there's a little bit of halo coming in from around the lights, and that's because we've got these SMDs mounted right against the surface here, and even though we light blocked it, a little bit of light's coming through, but not to worry. Like I said, when we get ready to prime and paint this, we're going to put a little drop of Elmer's glue in each one of these spots to sort of mask it. And then when we prime and paint it, that's all going to go away, and we'll just see, when we're done, we're just going to see a nice little fine pinpoint of light coming out of there, just like it should be. So that's going to be really nice. Now here you can see that our SMD here on the top, that's going to be our strobe on our bridge, is flashing at a completely different rate than these other ones are. It's a, as they call, a strobe effect. It's one real quick, bright flash of light. So we have those two separate circuits going on there, and here you can see it on the bottom side. And as I said, we made sure when we paid attention and got our red and our green on the same side. It's really easy to make that mistake. So what we're going to do is, we've also got some strobe lights that are on the, there's one that's on the belly of the refit, and there's also two more that go on the tail fins, the top of the warp engine nacelles at the very top at the rear. And then they also had a flashing one, depending on which version of the Enterprise refit you're building. If it was Star Trek the Motion Picture, you saw one that flashed, two more that flashed on the secondary hull. We had one on the belly, and then we had two back by the hangar bay, one just above the hangar bay doors and one below it. And even during Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, where they were still using some stock shots from Star Trek the Motion Picture, when they showed the Enterprise, you'll notice during that film that sometimes the rear lights there by the shuttle bay flash, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're always on. So if you're doing the Wrath of Khan version, you can kind of do it either way. And I'm not going to worry about putting the flashing lights there on the hangar, by the hangar deck, because it'll still be correct if they don't. Everything from Star Trek 3 on, they always flashed pretty much. So we can do this either way. So all we're going to do is we're going to add one more flashing strobe to the belly down on the bottom of the secondary hull, and two more at the top of the engine nacelles. And in order to do that, we'll just run our wiring. We'll connect to this board, and we'll run it down through the neck, down into the belly, and then up through the engine pylons, and then up into the nacelles, and finally to the tail. So we'll show you that when we do that a little bit later. It's just a matter of running the wires through there and connecting it up. But our board is going to mount in here. I think I'm going to mount it in this little recessed area right here at the bottom of the secondary hull. I already test fitted it, and there's plenty of room to fit it in there, so I'll hot glue this in there. And then our power can come in and connect to all that and everything, and we'll have everything all in one place. This light here, this 3mm that we're going to have lighting the bridge, that'll just connect to the power. So we'll have power coming up to the board, you know, our 9 volts, and we'll just tap into that. So whenever we turn the power on, that light will also come on. We have to connect a 470 ohm resistor onto that to make sure we don't blow that out. But that's it, guys. So that's our basic navigation and strobe light on the saucer. And as I said, we're going to repeat the same exact process on the saucer of the Reliant and on the engines of the Reliant. So we're not going to really show you that because it's just repeating the same thing. So you can kind of figure that out on your own, just a matter of placing them in the right spots. But so anyways, guys, I hope that was helpful to you. And we're going to come along with our next video and get into more of the, we've got to light the crystal here. I'm going to get the bridge lighting figured out. We're going to see if we can light the planetary sensors on the bottom. Looking at the parts on the kit, I noticed that there's no openings on them. They're molded kind of flat, so it might be kind of difficult, but we'll see what we can do. We'll try to work on that by the time we come to the next video. Probably have another update on this early part of next week. So that's a wrap for this one, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Till we do, take care and happy modeling, everyone.